We're getting towards the end of this section. We've got the bulk of our app working nicely. So now's a good time to try and tidy up a few of the last warnings and errors and small fixes to make our project as good as possible. I'm now in the activity_main.xml layout file, if you can go ahead and do the same. And if we look at this file, if we scroll up and down, and in particular if we look to the right where the scroll bar is, we can see there's these little yellow lines, and each of these yellow lines correspond to one of these warnings that are inside our layout file. So as you can see, pretty much anywhere where we've typed a hint, or anywhere where we've typed text, like in our checkboxes, we get a warning. And we can click on these little horizontal lines to jump to a warning. Okay? So when I hover over this warning, it says, hard-coded string contact name should use string resource. Now we've been seeing this warning all course, pretty much. It's not a problem, it's not going to affect the performance of your app, but it's not best practice. So this thing of actually typing in the words we want to use in the file, whether that's typing in our text values in these layout files, or if it's setting text in our activity classes in our code, this is called hard coding. We're typing in the value as we want it to appear exactly where we set it. Now in a small project like ours, it's not too much of a problem. We've probably only got about 10, 15 times where we're typing strings or typing hints or setting text in our checkboxes. We don't have too many. But there's two big reasons why later on this can become a bit of a problem. The first is consistency. Take a look here where we say contact name. Well, in a large app, we might use the words contact name multiple times. We might have it as a hint for a field, we might have it on a contact details page, we might use these words, contact name, over and over again. So we could type it in each place that we need it. But then later on we decide, actually, I don't want it to say contact name anymore, I just want it to say name. Well, then you've got to remember every single place in your code where you use the words contact name and then change them. And then of course you might forget one or two, and then your app starts to breed inconsistency. So consistency is the first reason why it's not a good idea to hard code these strings as it's warning us. There's another reason which we'll cover in the next tutorial to do with localization. This is the way of using different strings for different languages. And these two reasons, consistency and the ability to cater for multiple languages, depending on what language the user has on their phone, these are two pretty strong reasons why we shouldn't ever really hard code our strings. So there's a way we can actually store these outside of our code as a resource. So go ahead and open up the project pane on the left, and I'm going to start with all the folders closed to show you exactly where these string resources are kept. So in our project, open up the top folder, and it's our app as normal, it's our app source code, it's our main source code, and it's not Java code, it's a resource. So open up the resource folder. Now so far we've only looked at layout resources. In fact, this activity_main.xml, this is a layout resource, and this layout file will be kept in the layout folder. We may have seen our drawable folders when we were playing around with images. We'll ignore the map folders for now, but the final folder to note is this one called values. So if you go ahead now and open up the values folder, and you can see we have three different resource files already there: colors, strings, and styles. So let's go ahead now and double check these strings.xml and see what we have. We have what looks like a very simple XML file with one top element, resources, and inside this resources tag, we have a singular element called string, all with lowercase. And this string has one attribute called name, and that name equals app_name. So there's a few places that our app uses their app name. It's used in the phone's app drawer underneath the icon to show the name of the app, and it's also used by default as the label for the toolbar. So rather than hard coding these values, instead they store the string once here with the name app name, and then if I jump over to the manifest now, manifest, and I click where it says engrave the shameless self promo app, that's actually a shortcut to this string resource, @string/app name. It's possible to manually type the app name here. That's okay, but better is to store it centrally in this strings.xml file. So I'm just going to close the manifest down for now. So we can make strings that we define in this file, and then we can refer to them in our layout files or in our Java or Kotlin code. And we can refer to the same string resource multiple times if it's used in multiple places, and this makes it a lot better for consistency. And also it gets us set up for the next tutorial where we can start to handle localization, which means handling other languages. So let's go back now to activity_main, and we can see here we have a hint called contact name. So rather than typing it manually here, let's create a string resource in that strings.xml file, which has the same value. So underneath this first string, let's make a new tag, do lowercase s for string, autocomplete. Autocompleting populates the name attribute automatically, and we'll call the string hint_contact name. And then if we move to the right and do a right arrow, that gives us our closing tag. And inside these tags now, we can type our string. No speech marks, just type the raw value, so contact name. Just like that. Now if I jump back to activity_main, I can delete contact name, leave the speech marks, but now we can refer to a resource. So do the @ symbol, and then do the word string. And it gives us a few values we can choose here. If we do /, and then we can type the name of our string. So our string was called hint_contact name. So we can go ahead and autocomplete that. And now we're referring to this string resource. And we can actually get the layout file to show us what this value is. If you click on the string name, and on Windows you can do Control and then the minus key next to 0, or on Mac it's Command and the minus key next to 0. And doing that will turn it grey, which is showing you the value of the resource. And then to see what the actual resource is, you click on it again to expand that. So all we've done is we've moved that value from being hard-coded in the file into our strings resources file. So let's go ahead now and do the same for contact number. So I'm going to duplicate this line, Control D, Command D, and I'll change it to contact number. And then I'm going to change that to contact number. And then I'm going to jump back to the activity_main, delete the contact number value, the hard-coded value, and do @string/hint, and then select contact number. I can do Control- or Command- if I want to see what that value is. Okay? There's another way to convert a hard-coded string in our layout files to a string resource. If we go to the next area, which is my display name, and click in the middle of the warning. Now if you click the light bulb or you do Alt-Enter, Option-Enter, there's an option to extract string resource. This can be a very quick and easy way to convert those hard-coded warnings into values. Press Enter. And we can give it a name, so we'll call it hint_my_name. The resource name doesn't need to match the value that we show the users. The resource name is something identifiable for us. So there's no standard convention here. It does need to be lowercase separated with underscores, so snake case. But in terms of how you name it, that's entirely up to you. I like to go with how it's used and then a description. So we're using this as a hint. So I start with the word hint and then do an underscore and then something that's familiar to me. And my name works for me. So for a button, I might have button_submit or button_preview. Okay? You can use whatever resource names work for you. Do though try to keep it in lowercase with underscores, snake case. And by default, by using that extract string resource suggestion, it pulls through the value that we had hard-coded. So I can just press OK now. If we go to strings, I can see it's put that into us automatically. So for the rest of these hard-coded values, I'm going to go to each one, and I'm going to do Option Enter one, extract, create it that says, if I look on the right, we've only some text, I just our send button. And that says send message, and then select the button text send strings. Introduction to the strings resource file. So best practice in your layout file. In the last tutorial, we took a first look at our strings.xml file to create string resources. We learned that in this XML file, we can put a string element inside a resources tag, and that creates a string resource, which we can then refer to both in our XML and later on we'll see in our Java or Kotlin code. The two reasons why we should always do this when handling strings in Android is one for consistency, but the second big reason to use a string resource, to use this strings.xml file, is for a thing called localization. If I just head over to my browser now, and if I type Android localization and enter, and hopefully towards the top you'll see developer.android.com topics, resources, localization. It says localize your app. So if you can go ahead and click this, and just reading through the description, Android runs on many devices in many regions. To reach the most users, you actually handle text, audio files, numbers, etc. in ways appropriate to the locales where your app is used. So this includes things like languages for your strings, for your text, okay? Now there's a very specific way to do this. If I just click on the right where it says using resources for localization, and we'll scroll down to there. So it says we put the app's default text in our res/values/strings.xml. If I just jump back to Android Studio. So by default we use this regular values folder, just like that. And anything we put in here, by default the app will use resources in this file, in this folder, okay? If I jump back to the browser. So we should put the text strings in our default language, so the language we expect most of our apps users to speak, which in many cases will be English. It may not be, depending on where in the world you want to launch your app, okay? Now if we scroll down, it says how to create alternative resources. So in the res folder, we can do res / and then a qualifier. So we use values by default, you see there, but we can add a suffix to the word values for a specific language. So we can have a folder called values-fr, and that's where we put all of our French strings, all our French resources. Values-JA for Japanese. And there's a specific list of accepted qualifiers. You can't just call it what you want. It has to be values-fr for French, okay? And they've got a link to that on this page. So what I'll do to show you what this is and how it works, we'll make a couple of strings now that will handle the French language. So if I go back to Android Studio, so I'll close the layout folder, and I'm going to click on the res folder. By default, our app will use all of our values inside the values folder. But let's now make a folder that will handle the values for the French language. So right click where it says res, and do new directory. And we'll call this one values-fr, and it must be exactly like this. So values-fr, all lowercase. And you can see now we have a folder underneath the word values. I'm going to right click on this folder and do new, value resource file, and I'm going to make another strings.xml. In reality, you can actually call the strings file whatever you want. You can have multiple files if you want to group them. It doesn't really matter as long as all of these string elements here are inside the resources tag. But by convention, we call it strings.xml. If I expand the folder, we can see we have strings.xml in our French folder. So now in here, I can provide specific string values for the French language. So I'll do new tag for these string elements XML underneath the word values. And it must be exactly like this. Directory. But let's now make a folder that will handle the values for the French language. So right click where it says res and do new directory. And we'll call this one values-fr, and it must be exactly like this. So values-fr, all lowercase. And you can see now we have a folder underneath the word values. I'm going to right click on this folder and do new value resource file, and I'm going to make another strings.xml. In reality, you can actually call the strings file whatever you want. You can have multiple files if you want to group them. It doesn't really matter as long as all of these string elements here are inside the resources tag. But by convention, we call it strings.xml. If I expand the folder, we can see we have strings.xml in our French folder. So now in here, I can provide specific string values for the French language. So I'll do new tag string, and I'll just pick one for now. I'll pick the contact name, and it's important that I name this exactly the same. So hint. If I expand the folder, we can see we have strings.xml in our French folder. So now in here, I can provide specific string values for the French language. So I'll do new tag string, and I'll just pick one for now. I'll pick the contact name, and it's important that I name this exactly the same. So hint underscore contact underscore name, and then the right arrow, and now I have a space to type contact name. So in French, this would be nom du contact, and then the right arrow. It's important that I have a specific string. It doesn't really matter as long as all the French. And I'll just pick one for now. I'll pick the contact name, and it's important that I name this exactly the same. So hint underscore contact underscore name, and then the right arrow, and now I have a space to type contact name. So in French, this would be nom du contact. Okay. Now, if I go ahead and run this app on the emulator, and we look at the field, contact name, we can see nothing changes. And that's because this phone is set to English. But if this phone then changes its language, I'll just go into the settings, I'll type language, language and input, and then languages English, I'll then change this to French by dragging that to number 1. Well, you can see at the top, even in the settings app, languages has changed into French there, and all the other text in this app, so they're using string resources correctly. In the settings app, language and input, on the emulator, and we look at the field, contact name, we can see nothing changes. And that's because this phone is set to English. But if this phone then changes its language, I'll just go into the settings, I'll type language, language and input, and then languages English, I'll then change this to French by dragging that to number 1. Well, you can see at the top, even in the settings app, languages has changed into French there, and all the other text in this app, so they're using string resources correctly. And then if I go to my task switcher, and then go back to our app, you can see the name changes to nom du contact, okay? So if you want an app which handles multiple languages, you must use these string resources as the way to achieve this. If I go back to our default values/strings file, you can see we've got some warnings or errors used there, and all the other text, I'll then change this to settings. I'll type language, language and input, and then languages English, I'll then change this to French by dragging that to number 1. Well, you can see at the top, even in the settings app, languages has changed into French there, and all the other text in this app, so they're using string resources correctly. And then if I go to my task switcher, and then go back to our app, you can see the name changes to non-do-contact, okay? So if you want an app which handles multiple languages, you must use these string resources as the way to achieve this. If I go back to our default values/strings file, you can see we've got some warnings or errors that's saying that these strings haven't been translated in French. So Android Studio is assuming that this is a mistake, that we've missed some of our translations. It's not an error that will stop your app from running, so actually we could ignore this, or you can do Alt-Enter and you can mark the string as non-translatable. And as you can see, it gives you a translatable attribute that's false, and the error goes away. You don't have to do this, but I hate having layout files or programming code which have errors in them. So let's go ahead now and translate our app name into French as well. So I'll go above here and I'll do string app_name, and shameless self-promo in French I believe is autopromotion sans vergogne, just like that. Apologies to any French-speaking students for my appalling pronunciation there, but autopromotion sans vergogne, self-promotion without the shame, or shameless self-promo, okay? And if I go ahead and run the app, you can see we have autopromotion sans vergogne as the app title, and then non-do-contact as our first field. The rest of them, because we didn't provide a translation, it goes to the default, which is in the values/strings file. And if I close the app and go to the app drawer, you can see as well the app has even changed in the app drawer, autopromotion, you can see there, okay? If I then change the phone language back to English, and then go back, you can see the app goes back to its original name, the shameless self-promo app, and when I open it, all the fields turn back to English. So you're free at this point if you want to continue and translate the rest of these strings to French. I'm actually going to delete the French file for now, as it's not really the purpose of this app to handle it in multiple languages. But you are now free if you want to translate this into Spanish or French or whatever language you like. You'll have to check the Android documentation for what folder name if it's a different language to French. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and delete the whole folder. So right-click delete, then all those warnings go away. So that is localization in Android and how to provide specific resources, specific strings for a specific language. As I mentioned in the previous tutorial, my recommendation to you is anywhere you use a string, if that string is something that your user will see, then put it as a string resource. Okay, let's move on. We've pretty much finished the app for this section, our shameless self-promo app. The app works as expected. It previews the message, it sends it through to our text messaging app, and we've even fixed those hard-coded string errors that we saw in the previous two sections. There's just one final thing that would be really nice to do in our app to give it a bit more personal style, and that is to change some of these default colors. As you can see, every single one of our apps so far has had the same default theme colors. A light purple for the toolbar, where the app title is, a darker purple for the status bar, where our network signal and time is, and then this green accent color for our buttons, or for our checkboxes, or for when we select text input edit text, you can see the same green there, okay? So we're going to see where these default theme colors are set. We're going to see how to change them. So we're going to have a first look now at the two files that help control our app theme and also our app's colors, okay? So I'm going to minimize the emulator. So I'm in Android Studio with all the files closed and the project pane open with the top level project folder closed. As a little mini test for yourself, see if now you can navigate to where these strings.xml file was located from the previous two tutorials. Remember, it's in that values folder in the res folder, okay? So see if you can pause the video and get there yourself. If you can't do that, then follow along with me. So we open up the project folder. It's now app source files like normal, the main source files, and it's not Java or Kotlin code, it's a resource. So we open up the resources folder, the res folder, and at the very bottom we have values. And in there we have our strings.xml file, but we also have two other files, styles.xml and colors.xml. So let's go through these one by one. Can you double click the styles.xml file first? When you make a new project in Android Studio, by default it will give you this base application theme. You can see it here in the comment. It will give you the styles.xml file and it will make a style resource. If you look, we have the same resources tag that our strings.xml had. Okay, so inside that same resources element, but this time it's not a string element, it's a style element. Okay, and in the style element we have a name attribute, which is the name of the style, and by default it calls it app theme, but we can change this. This could be your app theme name if you wanted. I'm going to leave it as the default app theme though for now. And quite importantly, it has a parent. So much like with our Java and Kotlin classes with inheritance, where you can have a parent class, styles can have a parent style. So you can see we have this parent and then this kind of long theme.appcompat.light.dark action bar. Leave this exactly as is for now. This is a standard base template theme, which gives us lots of goodies and lots of nice looking things and the right toolbar text color, the right background color. Okay, so don't change this, don't delete this for now, or things won't work as you expect. But then inside this style element that we call app theme, we have the space to customize the theme. You can see there's a little comment there saying we can customize the theme here. And each customization is in an attribute called item. Okay, so item name equals, and these names, they can't just be anything. You can't make this up. Okay, it must be a specific item name in the whole Android theme system. Okay, so the Android theme knows what color primary is. It knows what color primary dark is, and it knows what color accent is. In fact, if I just load up the emulator to the side of this. So color primary in the Android theme system, amongst other things, that will control the toolbar color, where you see the app text, the app title, okay? The color primary dark, that will control the status bar, where our network symbols and notifications are. And then the accent color will be used for any of the widgets that can have a selected state, like edit text and our checkboxes, and it will also be used for the background things like buttons and other widgets. So going back to Android Studio now, we define a new style name here. We leave the default extending from this parent, this base theme in Android, and inside this style element, that's where we can put our customizations by selecting specific items by name, and the names do need to match, and then we can start to control and customize the theme, okay? Before I show you how quick and easy it's going to be to change these simple theme colors, I want to show you the one place where this theme, this app theme, is used at the moment. So if you can head over to the manifest, either in the folders to the left, or you can do Shift, Android manifest, and autocomplete. So in our manifest file, you can see we have the application element, yeah? And in the attributes, we have at the very bottom, Android:theme, and that equals a style resource. You can see we have the at symbol, meaning it's a resource. So at style, slash, and then the name of our theme. If you decide to change the name from the default app theme, then it would need to match here, okay? I'm going to leave mine as the default app theme for now. So by applying this theme here in the manifest, these styles, those colors, all of the nice looking user interface touches that come with that parent theme, it will be applied throughout the application on every activity. Later on, you'll learn it's possible to apply themes to specific activities, so you can have a different style, a different theme for each individual screen. And later on, you'll see you can even do this for individual views, individual widgets. You can have a button following a specific theme, okay? For now, we'll leave it as the theme for our entire application, so we'll have the same primary and primary dark and accent color for all screens in our app, okay? So I'm going to close down the manifest now. So you can see in these items, it's referring to another resource, at color, a color resource, okay? It is actually possible within these item tags to hard code a color. You can do hash, you can do red. That's perfectly acceptable, there's no warning, no errors there. But much like with our strings, it is best practice to extract your colors to a color resource, to not hard code them. For the same reason, really, if you have a red colour that you are using in multiple places, but then later on you decide to change it ever so slightly, well, rather than having to remember everywhere you use that red colour, you can instead change the resource. So I'm going to undo this and leave our colour primary resource. So maybe you can guess where these colour resources are located. If you look left, you can see we have a colours.xml file. Or of course you could control click or command click to jump to this. So I'm going to open the colours.xml file to the left, and we have another resources element. And inside this element, we don't have strings, we don't have styles, we now have colours. Okay? And again, these colour names can be called whatever you want. It could be my primary colour, or you could call it my simple purple, or you could simply call it red. Okay, so you can name these however you would like. Again, I'm going to leave them as the default because colour primary, dark, these make sense to me. But what I am going to do now is I'm going to change these colour values to something that I like a bit better rather than these purples and greens. And the quick and easy way that I'm going to do that is by clicking on the preview colour, this little square you can see there. That brings up our colour picker. And I could adjust the slider and choose a colour and drag it around. I could do that. You can see it changes the hexadecimal code to the right. Yeah. But instead, I'm going to choose some default colours from these colour palettes you see at the bottom. So this says material A200, material accents 200. So I'm going to choose not an accent colour for the primary colour, but I'm going to choose a simple material 400. That's a nice simple non-accent colour. And I'll choose a blue this time, a nice royal blue. So I'll go for that colour there. You can see that changes the hexadecimal code. Then I will click off, and then I'll choose the primary dark colour. And I'll do a much darker version now. I'll do material 800. I'll choose this darker version of the same blue. Okay. And then for the colour accent, I'll choose something that contrasts with blue a bit better than green. I don't think blue and green go that well together. And I'll choose it from the material accent colour palette. Remember, material design, Google's really famous and popular design specification. By choosing colours from their colour palettes, you'll get some nice mixes, some colours that work well together. And I think I'll choose a red, an accent red colour. And I'll click off. Actually, I think the primary colour is a bit light, so I'm going to choose that and change it to material 500, not 400. Okay, that looks a bit better to me. So, jumping back to our styles.xml, we're referring to 3 items in our theme, the colour primary dark, and the colour accent. And in turn, these values are colour resources found in our colours.xml file, okay? So if you go ahead and run the app, and you can see we now have a nice blue colour for our toolbar, a darker blue colour for the status bar, and then a nice red accent colour, which will be both for our buttons, for our checkboxes, and also the highlight when we select our edit text, as you can see. So feel free to change those colours to whatever you think looks good. So now you know a quick and easy way to change your app's theme by using styles.xml, and you also know how easy it is to change those simple theme colours, primary dark, and the accent colour. So that completes our Kotlin section. Our app is now fully complete. Well done for getting through all of this. It's been a big section. We've made a big jump to Kotlin, and from this point in the course, we'll be working pretty much entirely in Kotlin from this point forward.